The girls were heading home from school. They were stopped by a car. The girls recognized it as Mr. Lin's car, so they went to say hello. Seeing that it was getting late, he offered to take the girls home. The girl in the passenger seat, dressed in a cool dress, slightly mature. Lin glanced at her, remind the girls, should pay attention to the dress code. This was just a kind reminder, but no one expected. The next day, the girl in the red dress died by the river. The girl was not dressed properly. Obviously, she had been assaulted. Even the corner of her mouth was cut by a knife. The corner of her mouth was cut by a knife. The police immediately rushed to the school. They handcuffed Lin and took him to the police station. According to the student's statement, the murdered girl was the last one to get off the bus. The last one to get off the bus that day. Lin was interrogated in a daze. He finally learned that the girl he kindly sent home, she died on the road. According to the results of DNA matching, they found that Lin was not the murderer. Lin went back to school as usual. He thought he'd be cleared. He was released by the police. His life would return to normal. But when he walked on campus, what he felt was, the students looked at him differently. Sometimes they even whispered together. The family of the murdered girl went to the school. The family believes that Lin is the murderer. They accused the school of harboring the culprit. The whole thing was a big deal. The headmaster could only politely advise old Lin to get out of the limelight. Take a break. Old Lin had a hard time with this, but there was nothing he could do to prove his innocence. But he didn't realize, even his girlfriend suspected him. At that moment, Lin felt a chill in his heart. He angrily told his girlfriend to get out of the car. They parted on bad terms. Old Lin could not figure out. He was just trying to be nice. How could he be accused of murder? He was accused of murder. When he returned home in a state of panic, it was already midnight. The police car was parked downstairs. There were many onlookers around. He rushed upstairs and saw the house in a mess. His daughter and mother were sitting in tears. Old Lin knew. It must be some guy who's been catching information. Came to his house to seek justice. He knew that the only way to catch the real culprit. He knew that only by catching the real culprit, then he can get justice. A woman's body was lying in pieces by the river. Her clothes are in disarray. Even the corners of her mouth are torn. Her school uniform shows she was still a child. And the red dress and black silk may be the trigger for the murder. The police have turned their suspicions to. The police turned their suspicion to the teacher who sent the girl home that day. Teacher Lin didn't realize he was just doing a good deed, turned into a murderer. Even his house was smashed to pieces. For the sake of his reputation and his family's livelihood, Lin decided to find the murderer himself. He questioned the workers by the river. He learned that an old man was herding cows. He might have seen something. So Lin paid a visit, although he didn't get any concrete evidence. But at least we know, the culprit probably had a black motorbike. He continued his visit. He came to his student's home. This girl and the victim were together that day. Old Lin wanted to ask what really happened that afternoon, but the girl's family had a bad attitude. Not only did they speak ill of him, they pushed him down. His face was covered in blood. He had no choice but to leave. He could only leave in disgrace. He returned to the scene. A black motorbike was parked on the riverbank. Old Lin approached to check it out. Not far away from the face came a man wearing a helmet. Lin stared at him and tried to talk to him, but the man ignored him. He suddenly pushed him down. He jumped on a motorbike and left. He was so weak that he realized that the man in front of him is the murderer. He quickly got up and drove after him. Unfortunately, the mountain road was winding. The motorbike disappeared into the woods. Old Lin hoped to call the police. He told the police everything he knew, but the police said the motorbike didn't have a license plate. And in the nearby villages, black motorbikes like this are everywhere. The police hoped that Lin would understand the work of the police. The matter was left unsettled. Rumors spread in the school. Old Lin was overwhelmed. He became obsessed. He began to squat at the crime scene every day, waiting for the murderer to show up again. But he didn't wait for the murderer, but he waited for the news of his daughter's accident. He ran back to school like a madman. Because of the rumors, his daughter was also implicated. She was ostracized at school. At this moment, Lin's emotions erupted. He went to the headmaster of the school, looked at the students in front of him. He shouted hysterically, "这就是你的处理方式？我像杀人犯吗？我像杀人犯吗？我像杀人犯吗？" The daughter was taken to the hospital in time. Luckily, she was fine. She was discharged and went home to recuperate. Unexpectedly, The misfortune did not stop there. Lynn's elderly mother, because she couldn't bear the blow of gossip, suddenly passed away. Lynn held his mother's photo in his arms and grieved. He didn't understand. He was kind enough to give his students a lift. How did it come to this? Old Lynn felt physically and mentally exhausted. He just wanted to be with his daughter, but once when he was buying water by the roadside, he ran into that girl again, the girl who was with the victim. This time she told him a deep secret. It's just a rumor amongst his classmates that he had a murderer for a father. The rumors have tormented Lynn, and now his daughter is involved. He could care less about what people think, but he couldn't care less about his own family. That day, while buying water by the roadside, he met a girl who was close to the victim. Lynn noticed the bandage on the girl's hand. Out of instinct, he expressed his concern and asked the girl if she wanted a lift to the hospital. It was out of kindness. He gave the victim a lift. That's why he got caught up in the rumor mill. Now that he saw the girl in need, he is still willing to help. This has made the girl who was originally suspicious of him, the girl who doubted him, had changed her mind. Sitting in the car, the girl thought about it. She felt more and more that old Lynn wouldn't kill his own students. So he revealed to old Lynn a very important clue. Recently after school, the girl saw a man with a scar on his face, staring furtively at her. He recognized him. It was the pervert building manager, who had been dismissed from school for stealing girls' underwear. The pervert building manager who was fired by the school for stealing girls' underwear. It's a coincidence. Before the victim was killed, she met him in the neighborhood, and the victim had also testified against the building manager. Lynn wrote down this information. He went to the school archives to check. He had some memory of the man the girl mentioned. When the building manager was arrested, old Lynn was there, and he chose to believe the students' testimonies. After understanding the situation, Lynn went to the building manager alone. He found him and the black motorbike. When the building manager saw old Lynn, he raised his knife and attacked him without saying a word. The two of them fought together. The knife flew out and the other man, he strangled Lynn. During the struggle, Lynn found an iron bar. He picked it up and struck back, and finally managed to escape. Then the police arrived. The real murderer was brought to justice. Old Lynn finally waited for his innocence. He went back to school to teach the sound of reading after a long time. The sound of reading made him feel better. Life was back on track. Although the murder case was over and the truth was revealed, but the rumors didn't go away, and the malice continues. 3 men make a tiger, and all mouths are made of gold. Rumors are scary, but what's more chilling is human indifference and blind obedience.